the other Kenya. The hashtag, of course, is my dress, my choice. That hashtag has very many implications. Of course, it started with the incidents early on this week in Embakasi and Mombasa. We'll take you now to our video wall for some tweets from the other side, the other perspective on my dress, my choice. A lot of people saying that view is not represented. We'll get those tweets on in just a second. But really, this is a discussion about gender. It's a discussion about violence. It's a discussion about a place and time and appropriateness. And let me just introduce my panel before we go to those tweets. To my immediate right is Esther Passaris, well-known politician, social entrepreneur. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, there's Bonnie Mwangi, activist, very well-known as well. Used to work here in the Standard Group. That was a lifetime ago, right? Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Ndanya Masiuko, you are an image consultant. Thank you for joining us this evening. Of course, Kenya National Congress politician. He was Peter Kenneth's running mate, and are we looking at something a little higher in the future? I'll ask you that later. Roddy Osumba, thank you very much for joining us, right? Okay, let's go to our tweets right now. The first ones on our Super Bowl should be opening right now. Humphrey Wainaina, I do not condone stripping, but dress the way you want to be addressed. That's something we're going to be getting into. There's lots more, of course. That's our first tweet. We can roll on to our second tweet, at least from the discussions that other people are having. That was from Walimu Wanjie. This debate addressing Robert Alai, a person who's been very, very vocal about this. Robert Alai, on this debate, you are right. Let us all sober up. Amongst the crowd, why didn't men strip all the other women? I think we've got about 2 more tweets we can roll on just to give that other perspective as well. Mohammed A. Aden says, and this is of course also addressed to you, Bonnie, if you cover a simple phone with an anti-scratch, why not your body? Covered chocolates taste ... Leave. And finally, David Ngibwini says, time and location determines my dress, my choice. Outside that, choices have consequences. Ever seen owls fly during the day? Strange. Right? Of course, you can call us on 0719012311 or 0719012590 if you agree with the opinions expressed in those tweets. But let's get right into it now. Esther, those tweets. You addressed Robert Alai quite seriously during this week on the same subject. I'll just very quickly go to you and first ask, your dress tonight.
Yep.
Do you think that you are dressed appropriately?
You know what? What is appropriate? You know, I've got a teenage daughter who went to an international school, mingles with Europeans in Kenya, in schools in Kenya, all right? And wearing shorts, wearing mini skirts is normal, all right? And
but you'd have to agree that is a minority of the Kenyan population in terms of opinion and in terms of culture as well. That would be perceived as a tad bit...
when we started the Mutumba trade,
yes,
we brought in bales and bales of foreign clothes. And those bales and bales of foreign clothes hit our market. Leggings, jeggings, bras. We never used to wear bras, all right? And it was not perceived indecent. But today, if you don't wear a bra, it is indecent. But yet, these things came to us. We're in the international market. You know, I'm just thinking, today as I was driving here, I was thinking, Lupita Nyong'o, role model to many Kenyans on the concept of beauty. She's always in a mini.
Okay.
Right?
But listen to this. Western technology, I'll paraphrase it, of course, to what we're discussing about. But the Japanese say Western technology, local values. We can say the same for dress. Western technology or Western dress, but local values. We didn't import our values from Europe. They found them here in terms of our culture. Do you think, though, that you're pushing the boundaries?
Let me tell you something. There is no lack of values in a woman deciding she's comfortable wearing a mini, wearing trousers. When I was campaigning in Embakasi, it was a time when the Mungiki was saying that any woman who wears trousers will be stripped. So I was obviously scared. So I didn't wear trousers. And then a friend of mine bought me these boo-boos to wear. And I'll tell you one thing, I couldn't walk with the boo-boos. I couldn't campaign with them. I didn't know how to walk around with them. When we started doing the road rallies, in my dresses, the people downstairs could see everything. So I decided I'm going to wear trousers. And I was comfortable wearing trousers, jeans, etc. Nobody did anything. So at the end of the day, I feel that a woman's right to dress is her right. Do you know, John, if you have a daughter and you hit her or torture her because she wore a dress that you didn't approve, you're breaking the law.
All right, let's just hold on there. And Zenya, just let me, you want to jump in?
I wanted to say something. I
Yes.
wanted to say that you brought up a good point about westernization. And I think we must not confuse westernization for civilization. What we saw happen is a lack of respect where we violate somebody else and not a case of whether it's westernization, we got the clothes, we got
the flip side to
different
that
things.
argument is that westernization also brought things that are not in congruence with our
But
own
we were civilized
local culture.
already. We treated one another with respect. We took care of orphans and widows. We gave people who had no clothes clothes. In this case, we are violating people. We are beating them up because we don't think that the Western style they've picked is a good style. Yet the influences that we have, whether it's from the media or from the internet, wherever it is, people have options now. A matter of years ago, my mother would have a woman come from the UK and determine the length of the skirt based on what she brought. Today, the length of the skirt is determined by, like she said, the people bringing those clothes. And so for someone to say that it's a case of culture and stuff like that, we had no clothes before they came. Or rather, we had skins, hides, and it was okay. And so we must be, for us, the issue here has to do with being civilized, that we treat one another with respect. We don't violate a person.
All right. Ronnie and Bonnie, I want you to jump in now. Yeah. Is this a rights issue, but not in the way that has been described by Esther and Denya? Is this a rights issue from the respect of public morality? Inside your house, you can do what you want, but outside, if you dress the way, say, Esther is dressed tonight with a short skirt, then I have the right to upbraid you or even take your clothes off.
No, you have no right to touch anyone because of the way they're dressed. My mother used to wear miniskirts. If you go back to my mother's album, 60s, 70s, she used to wear a miniskirt. Did I disrespect my mother, or did you grow up disrespecting my mother because she was wearing a miniskirt? No. I don't think respect is about the way you're dressed. Because as they said, the dressing is Western, as in we used to wear loincloths. If you look at the Maasais, the Samburu, the Pokot, the Turkanas, even till today they wear miniskirts. But I think beyond that, it's about the rule of law in this country, where if the law really worked, those men wouldn't have touched that woman. Our society has actually degenerated to a level where people do whatever they want to do that. And I also blame the women leadership in this country. We had a women rep who was actually assaulted by a governor publicly, and we all saw it. It was a public issue. She could have actually set an example for the whole country, but she decided to settle that issue privately.
But when we had away from a subject here,
no, I'm not running away because I'm talking
morality.
About,
you see,
it's not about morality.
No, but those men are representative of a very wide opinion that is held by very many
but the
people.
Opinion is,
they may have acted in a way that is not, that isn't good, that is violent. But it is representative of the view that public morality demands that if you're out, cover up.
Cover up what?
Well, yeah, exactly.
The question is, cover up what? My question is, if we never used to have clothes, and the clothes are Western, we can't say that we blame the one for the way she's dressed. I think we need to come back to the issue, that you have no right, the law protects me to dress the way I want to. And I need to dress for where I'm going to. If I'm going to the club, if I think I'm going to hang out with my friends, I can wear whatever I want, and I should feel safe wherever I'm going. Because right now what you're trying to tell me is that when a woman is about to dress, you should think about, am I going to have the police escort me to where I'm going to? Am I going to get violated? There's that issue about why are we intruding in private space? Because my body and my clothes, it's private property.
It is private property, but we live in a society. We live in a context in which you and I have to cooperate. You and I are not islands of one another. And thus, the prurient interest in terms of morality comes into play. Ronnie, I want you to jump in here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How does my dressing affect you?
It affects you. It would affect me, at least. This is a point of view that a lot of people have represented. It would affect me if I feel that you are exposing something that I do not want the people around me, say my daughter or other women in society, to take an example.
So why did the women undress that woman?
The question about undressing, really, Bonnie, is not the issue insofar as public
Also,
morality
I think
is
the moment you
is
define this
concerned.
thought that what they did was right, or what they did was actually trying to protect something, we are actually trying to justify their thinking.
Right.
I need to ask you a question.
Giving them a moral high road.
Yes.
No one is morally superior. Recently, I saw a woman who was naked along the road, and people in their heads thought she was mad, and no one touched her.
Yes.
No one did anything
Exactly.
to her.
Exactly.
Why
They
would
didn't
it
even
be
cover her.
that the person has covered their private parts, but we still want to? And in this case, for us, the issue here has to do with beating someone, giving them public humiliation. That's not education. If we want the general public and the whole country to be in a consensus, in Uganda, they banned miniskirts. Means if you wear a miniskirt, it's in the law. You're asking for trouble. In Kenya, there is no such law, and therefore we must be allowed.
Okay.
John,
All right.
I think this is first and foremost. Let me just say, I think it is wrong. It is illegal. It's a crime to strip anybody in public, to met public punishment to anybody dressed in whichever way. So I think that must be clear. But that act was barbaric, that we must not condone it, that all men must stand against such crime, because this could be your daughter tomorrow, this could be your wife, this could be your mom. That said, I think the issue we are facing today is a values issue. And I think Kenya is at a crossroads. We are at a place where we want to embrace Western culture, but at the same time find it in conflict with our own cultures. These very same men who went about stripping this girl, who, number one, I don't think was skimpily dressed, as a lot of people have said, because they were actually not in a miniskirt. Even if they were actually in tights. All right? But these very same men are the very same people who actually celebrate and gawk at videos by, David or whoever you want to, refer to. But these are the very same men who celebrate these things in private.
All right.
And as soon as they walk out of that room, they condemn it.
Okay.
So I think what we are actually experiencing today, and it's not just about dress, it's about pretty much everything. It's about
Control.
education, it's about healthcare, it's about any
Security.
aspect of
Right.
security. It's
But
any
Ronnie,
aspect of
you
life
raise
that you're
a
looking
very interesting point in terms of the clash of cultures, and perhaps that's what we should have been discussing earlier. But before we carry on, we've got Daniel from Nairobi who's calling in. Daniel, can you hear me first of all? Thank you for joining us. Please give us your comment or question very quickly so we can move on with this discussion, Daniel.
I can hear you, sir.
Yes, Daniel, what's your question or comment?
My comment is this. I respect Madame Pasari's views, but when she comes in and says it's normal for us to, for our ladies to put on the way they're putting on, actually, I don't know the part of normalcy she's talking about, but that's her view. Let people put on decently. I respect one of our leaders who said that let people put on the way they wish. I've been seeing her, his lovely wife putting on decently. I really don't understand why he's misleading our wives and our daughters.
All right. Okay,
Let
Daniel.
people put on decently and let us respect one another. That's stripping, I condemn it. But let us be normal people in whatever we do. Let us not be proud of things we should be ashamed of.
Okay. Thank you very much, Daniel. Daniel calling in from Nairobi. Remember to keep your comments coming in. We will pick up some of your phone calls. 0719012311. That is the phone line, and of course they are at the bottom of your screen. Now, Daniel raises an interesting point. He agrees largely with what you're saying, but Esther, he spoke to you directly with respect to this being normal. And that, again, speaks to the issue of a clash of cultures, in that there are some people, a large number of people, I'd say, that don't consider miniskirts in public normal. And are we running away from this?
Let me tell you something. If you don't, you're entitled to your opinion, all right? If you don't think it's normal, then tell your wife, tell your mother, tell your daughter, tell your relatives. But you don't have a right to strip any woman because she's dressed up the way she's comfortable. All right, now, Ronnie mentioned something. He saw the clip, just like I saw the clip. You know what I feel happened here? The woman was walking, and the youth made some snide remarks, like something about her shape, or something about her weight, or something about her dress. And she probably turned around and told them, stop, or don't do this, or give them a mouthing. Then they took it upon themselves to strip her. Now, let me tell you something. If you're already uncomfortable with a mini, right, or a tight outfit, what comfort did you get when you stripped her nude? In the African tradition and values and customs, it is a curse to see a woman
Naked.
nude if she's not your wife. All right? Even your daughters, you cannot see your daughters nude. All right? So why strip a woman on the road for everyone to
Look,
see
I
her?
hate to play devil's advocate on this issue. Just one moment, right? Just one moment,
what
though.
Esther is asking here is, what justice was served? If you were pretty much offended by this woman being skimpily dressed, what justice then did you serve?
By
or what
completely
correction did you
undressing
make by making her nude?
I mean, to be clear, there is no justification for violence of that sort, and then I'll get to you in a moment, but there's a flip side to what you're saying, right? If in the African culture it is a curse to see women naked, then the argument that a lot of people, including Robert Alai, were posting was that the people who are walking in town are very near naked, and therefore it is also an affront to culture in one way or another. Daniel, let them just speak
I think
first.
first of all, we must recognize that we deal with different generations. Like I said, we have our grandparents, our parents, there's us, and then there's our children and the ones who come after us. And things are changing. Times have changed. We must recognize that. If, for example, with every media house we see here, from 4 o'clock, the children are on holiday, they're seeing the same things we're talking about, culture, shown to them every single day as okay. And so if we show that as okay in our national media stations, we can't come back here and say, and I'll say, Mutula, rest his soul in peace, said to the girls, you can wear the short skirts.
All right.
If they could wear them in high school, why are we saying that they cannot wear them outside? Are we double standard? Are we trying to say that, okay, wear them in high school, but by the way, when you now transition, life changes? No, we've already set the precedent, and therefore we cannot.
All right, Bonnie, you wanted to say something very quickly?
I think that was a very highest level of intolerance from those people. There's nothing indecent about, if I choose to wear indecently, it's none of your business. I think there's a way we're trying to portray this. It's a bigger issue than just being done.
And I think the question is, what's indecency?
Yes,
Right.
and the bigger
who
issue is,
judges that?
and the bigger question is actually, there's actually a lot
Who
of
judges?
gender-based violence,
Who judges?
Right.
especially against women,
Right.
behind closed doors. And now it's the manifestation of what happens in people's private homes publicly.
All right, let me just pose a bit of a dilemma here for you, and we'll just go to that. It's one of the pictures that we've got coming up on our video wall of something that's becoming a big part of our public discussion. Like you said, Ndenya, in terms of that, there's a picture of 3 women that I'd like to show. A lot of people have seen that, right? Type Kenyan socialites on our Super Bowl right now. Type Kenyan socialites on Google today. You'll see Rispa, you'll see Corazon, you'll see Vera Sidika, all dressed very skimpily, right?
Oh, is that what you call skimpy?
Well, that is for a lot of people what is called skimpily. I doubt that people would walk in town with their
women.
bras.
They are adorned.
Are we going too far in terms of justifying this?
No, let me tell you something. If she's comfortable wearing that, it is her right.
But what is the undertone there? Look at what they're exposing.
What are
All
they
right?
exposing?
Look
She's
at what
not
they're
exposed.
exposing.
She's covered.
Look at what they're exposing or what they're
culture that says our body.
accentuating.
There's a thing about our culture that says sex is filthy, your body is filthy, hide your
Money
body
is dirty.
parts. There's nothing like that.
But are we over-sexualizing our generations today to think
All
that
right.
40
We
years
have a
ago, 40 years
solution.
ago,
We have a
my
choice.
mother could wear a miniskirt in this country. 40
but
years later,
was she able to wear like that?
Of course.
short
What?
skirt, yes, my mother could wear, not the one at the center, but my mother could wear short skirt 40 years ago. Today, that can't happen. Why? My wife can't wear a miniskirt and go to downtown Nairobi because she's going to get stripped. Why? Are we losing ourselves and losing our values, as Ronnie said, as we become older as a country?
Okay.
No, tell me something. We're in the internet age. We have Google. We have YouTube. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. Our kids are seeing all this. All right? So explain to me something. If we want to create isolation, then disconnect all this. No MTV,
They may be
no
exposed to
foreign
this,
movies.
but there is a question
And
about guided,
When we
guided
talk about,
in
when we
terms
talk
of
about,
what you're
when we,
seeing,
let's talk about
then yeah.
guided in the context of what happened.
Yes.
That there were men watching, and not few, many, watching, doing nothing as they watch the girl get undressed. And so for us, the bigger question then poses to is it that we wanted to watch a show? Is it that we wanted to see this? Is it that we watched it now online, on TV, we want to see it live? Is that what it is? Because we have deeper issues, and those issues may be moral issues, which you were talking about
We'll get to
before.
that in a moment.
Let me talk about context.
Yeah.
And because I personally strongly believe that a lot of the issues this country and this nation faces, a lot of the sufferings that people have is mostly value-based.
Yes.
Right.
Right? And so we have a value-based system that doesn't fit within, what all of us would consider
Ronnie,
values.
I'll just ask you to hold that thought. We've got James from Kitengela who's calling in. Let's just hear what he has to say. James, hello, can you hear us? Can you give us your question or comment, James?
Okay, mine is a comment, John.
Yes.
And I want to condemn what happened to the lady. However, having said that, I want you to look those guys and ladies in the eyes. Let them tell us whether they can allow their daughters to leave their houses dressed like the lady in the middle for the picture that you've just shown. Secondly, why as a lady do you want to wear so uncomfortable when you keep on pulling over that skirt or mini dress? Why can't you just let it go to where you wanted it to go in the first place?
Okay.
So I think as Kenyans, we have very serious issues like insecurity to deal with. We have no place for this nonsense. For those people who are undressing ladies, their place, even those ladies who are dressing badly, and even men are there who sag. They belong together, and I think this is the time they need to shape up.
Yeah.
We don't have time. We cannot, that is a luxury as Kenyans, we cannot afford. People dressing like we are in brothels or anywhere else, and also for those who are addressing these people, because
All right.
it is not a solution, let them shape up.
Okay, thank you very much, James. That's James from Kitengela. We've got Thomas calling as well. Thomas, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, what's your question or comment? Very briefly.
Okay, my comment is about the members of the panel. I can understand if they are talking from a secular point of view, it's okay. But if it's from a religious point of view, I don't think they are right.
Well, James, we are a secular state constitutionally, so is there still a bit of a dilemma when you think about the Constitution? We are a secular state.
Well, maybe if we are going to borrow from developed countries like the West, if their constitution allows them even marriage between men, does it make it to be right from a point of religion?
All right, James, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, so you don't just tell us that.
All right, James, I think your point has been made. Thank you very much, James.
I have a bit of a problem.
Now, Ronnie, actually, he raises a very interesting issue. Both callers do, and I think it's about the issue of values that you were talking about.
Right.
What is our collective agreement about what our values
And this is
are?
the point I was trying to make before. I mean, when we talk about morality and values, these things are primarily driven by either culture, religion, exposure,
Education.
right? And education, And what I think is, as a nation, we have not come to a universal agreement of what our values and what our moralities are. So people of different cultures within the nation, and we have multiplicity of cultures within the nation, have different views about some of these things.
Yeah.
And a Turkana will not overly be offended with seeing a woman dressed.
So we should have a national conversation.
So we should have a national conversation about what are our universal morality standards or value standards.
Right.
But at the same time, I want to take issue with Thomas because he raises a religious issue. And my point is this: does then religion allow for stripping of women who are skimpily dressed?
Good question.
And I think we add to that if we were to bring up the religious perspective, in the beginning God said, let us make man in our image and likeness, male and female, he created them. The female the woman is the female expression of who God is. And when we take a hit at the woman, we take a hit at God. And people must be able to recognize that we're not just, it's not a random, it's just the woman.
All right.
And we've said that about abuse, that 85% of abuse is for women.
All
we
right.
must...
Let's now just widen this debate a little bit. I understand your point has been made. Let's widen this debate. We've got just one clip that I'd like to run about certain incidents that perhaps will put into context what happened here. If we have that clip, Joanne, let's just run it so that we can carry on with this discussion. Now, that collection of clips might not have anything to do with this directly, but in terms of the use of violence publicly,
Absolutely.
that speaks to something about our society. Let's speak now about the culture of violence very quickly. As we conclude, you wouldn't believe it, but 25 minutes is almost over. Right? So, Esther, I'll just start with you. Just give us one of your final
Let me
comments
tell you
about
something.
violence in Kenya.
We have to respect the law. There is no negotiation there. I'm thinking about mob justice. When we used to put tires on people and think it was okay, it was not okay. All right? I'm thinking of forced female genital mutilation. Wrong. I'm thinking about stripping women. Wrong. If you have issues with how a woman dresses, then deal with it in a manner that can bring dialogue and understanding and laws.
And it speaks to a deeper issue of violence. Bonnie, you've seen those clips.
Yeah.
Why isn't there, let me pose a question to you as you make your final comments, why isn't there as loud a voice when someone is killed extrajudicially in Kenya as there would be for a debate such as this? It is violence, that
Yeah.
it's on different parts of the scale, but why not?
I think Kenya has become it's a failed state in a way that we have allowed the police to kill because they're protecting me. It's a judicial killings. The judiciary doesn't work, so police kill to protect me. We do mob justice to protect ourselves.
But why isn't there that collective voice of condemnation?
The uproar is that they're doing that to protect me. That's the feeling. When they kill terrorist suspects, they're protecting me. I don't agree with them, but that's the feeling. I've been a victim of mob justice myself, political goons, and nothing happened. But I want to take it back to where we started. One lady called Shabesha had a chance to make a point about gender-based violence, and she did not do that. Nancy Baraza pinched someone's nose, and she lost her job. And you can see when men commit violence, they walk away with it. When women do it, women become victims. And as I end, I want to say this. Dressing is personal, religion is personal, and since this country doesn't have values, national values, values are personal. That's why men peer along the road, and women don't beat them up.
All right, Daniel, let's go to you for your final comments, but I want to lead you into that with a question. You're an image consultant. Is there a certain way that you could recommend in terms of time and place and fashion, in terms of dress, with respect to what we saw last week?
I think I want to add to one of the other conversations.
Yeah.
Want to say that there is hope. For us to be seated in this panel speaking to the nation means that someone somewhere is listening, and that if we begin to educate people, because I'm an image consultant, that's what I do, education. I come to your corporation. I've started a life skills curriculum in the high schools in partnership with the ministry to begin to educate from a younger age so that we can add values, morals, teach people what is right and what is wrong, and hopefully we will win some, and then if we lose some, we pray that justice is done, that there will be punishment for criminal activities, because that's what will then lead our society to know iwe funzo kwa wewe na wengine kama.
All right, Ronnie, from the political space, why isn't there a discussion about something as central as this as you wind up?
Because of two things. One, we do not have a set of national values. We have tried to constitute or legislate some set of values for this nation that do not resonate with a majority of the people, that do not resonate with culture, with religion, or anything else that we associate with. And I think it is time to have a very conscious and deliberate national conversation about what our values are.
Let me put you on the spot. What's the Kenya National Congress doing about having a conversation about values?
And this is the point. And we based our campaign purely on values. And we said we have to come up with a set of national values that unites us as one nation under one common set of values. And secondly, I want to say this, that we as men, you know, and I will be one of them because I have a daughter and I have a lovely son who I have a responsibility over to inculcate and even indoctrinate into a set of values. And unfortunately, men do not speak to their children in this country. Men do not have conversations around values and moralities because we fear it is the traditional thing to do. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about culture. We don't talk about anything with our kids. And this is a failure that is, I think, beginning to eat into our
Ronnie, we're going to have to wind up.
We must challenge the media as well.
Yes.
Not to propagate the stories as we would Ebola, but begin to do something positive towards educating the masses.
Something like this discussion, just as a plug. Bonnie, I'm sorry, we really have to wind up.
On Monday, we march for women's dignity. Let's reclaim it back.
All right. Okay. Esther Passaris, Bonio, I was about to call you Bonio Dinga. Boniface Mwangi, Ndanya Mosioku, as well as Ronnie Osumba. Thank you very much for coming. Of course, this is a discussion that can end right away. The hashtag is still going on there. And if you noticed, I have been playing devil's advocate quite a bit because it's very difficult to get people of the opposite opinion to speak about this issue and confront this. That's why we've been doing this. But of course, there is a point to every discussion that we have here on KT, and that's why we call it a point of news. And Yvonne Okwara has been following this discussion. So Yvonne, what is that point?
Yes, that's right, John. And as you said, this conversation cannot be concluded in an hour, in two, possibly even a whole day of just continuous discussion. But here are some points to consider. Morality versus criminality. Attempting to address a moral issue using criminal means or through violence. These are some of the questions that are coming up in this case. Whether or not the ladies were dressed in what one might consider morally decent or not. What is the best way to solve that issue? Are we using violence to solve an issue? And in that case, are we making the situation better or worse? As John pointed out in many of the clips, it seems we are slowly becoming a violent society, choosing to address every issue. You don't like what a politician has said, you use violence. You don't like how someone is dressed, you use violence. How are we addressing these issues of morality? And those are questions that we need to ask ourselves today. Do we have a constitution in this country that functions? Do we have a penal code that functions? Then those perhaps might be alternative ways of attempting to solve an issue of morality or indecency, as it may be. Second point to consider, Western culture versus African culture. It seems in the country we are at a crossroads, trying to define who we are as Kenyans, who we are as Africans, who we are, what our value system is, what is too short, too tight, too revealing. If we cannot even come together to decide what a national dress is, who makes who the moral police? Who is the one that decides what is right, what is wrong? Have we been able as Kenyans to define our value system? It seems in this country, we're the ones that are open and the sponges that are just sucking up and soaking up everything that comes from outside without perhaps defining who we are and therefore then starting to gauge what is happening based on those standards that have been set. Perhaps that is a conversation that we need to have going forward. That is the point tonight.